Welcome to the Chamber's Candidate Interview Series. I'm Christy Moore, and I serve as the president of the Dawson County Chamber of Commerce. On June 9th, the primary election will be held in Georgia, and early voting begins May 18th. In Dawson County, there are many local elections on the ballot. You may always view your sample ballot and polling location by visiting nvp.sos.ga.gov. One of the main areas of focus of our Chamber's strategic plan is advocacy. While we would typically host a forum for all candidates, due to the current pandemic and out of an abundance of caution that prioritizes the health and safety of the candidates and our staff, we are hosting in-depth candidate interviews instead. All candidates who are running for an office for which more than one candidate is running were invited to be interviewed. As a nonpartisan organization, we take seriously our role to promote issues of benefit to our businesses and community, as well as support the promotion of information about upcoming elections. The Chamber does not endorse a particular party nor particular candidates. We have worked diligently to ensure that these candidate interviews are fair to the participants and informative to our members and audience. Candidates were not given the questions prior to being interviewed. Questions were submitted by Chamber members and were predetermined by the Chamber's Advocacy Committee. Similar to a forum, each candidate will be given 3 minutes to give an opening statement and will have 2 minutes to answer each question. Today, I am joined by Will Wade, who is running to be the next state representative for District 9. Will, would you like to kick us off with your opening statement?
Sure. First, I want to say thank you, Christy, for the Dawson County Chamber and the Chamber Board for hosting this forum questionnaire through the means of technology that we're all now becoming accustomed. I also appreciate those businesses that have been trying to fight through the uncertainty out there. And I know that most people are modifying and adjusting quite well, but many are also still struggling. And I know that the Chamber has been a great resource for all those businesses through this process. I am Will Wade. I'm a native of Dawson County, Georgia. I've been here my entire 42 years on this earth, and I love this community and in the sister communities that make up the district of House District 9. I'm a 1996 graduate of Dawson County High School, got a double major in finance and accounting at the University of North Georgia, and I graduated there in 2001. I also have some additional master's degrees in banking that I received through the University of Georgia's Terry Business School. And I'm also in the midst of a program through University of Pennsylvania and a partnership with the American Bankers Association. So I've been a career banker for 22 years, serving this district specifically. My offices over my career have been in actually Dawsonville, Dahlonega, and Forsyth County. And so I'm very blessed to know the business community and the families that make up this district. Many of you may have heard of me through my experience as a local school board member. I was elected in 2004 and served just shy of 16 years on the Dawson County Board of Education. I was serving as chairman of the Board of Education, and I have enjoyed being a part of what is one of the best governance teams in the state to make sure that we've got a vibrant school system to provide for the future. Not just the businesses and employment, but the kids and the families that the school system serves. I want to touch on this. You may ask it later, but ultimately, this campaign is about this district. I did not have this on my plan for 2020. Obviously, the political tectonic plates, I guess, is kind of a catchphrase lately that have moved, and it put a position where our very own Kevin Tanner, who is currently serving in this role, is now seeking to run to be the next congressional congressperson from the 9th district. So this seat opened up. And I sat down and talked with a lot of close friends, family, some advisors. And this district has had a great workhorse in the seat. And I feel that I can bring to the table at this time exactly what is needed to represent this community in this very, very difficult but important time. So I look forward to discussing this today.
Absolutely. Well, to kind of follow up on your opening statement, why do you want to be a state representative?
Sure. So I think being a state representative is more about what is the role? What is the job? In my career as a community banker and as a school board member, I look at things from the perspective of what's the task at hand, what's needed, and what are the skill sets that can be utilized to get that job and get that function taken care of. So I think being a representative is a person that can listen to the broader community. It can listen to the needs of the agriculture community, the business community, the school system, local government, families, the entire gamut of what makes up Dawson, Lumpkin, and Forsyth County. And that's what a representative job is. And I feel that my skill sets are, quite frankly, put me uniquely qualified to face uh, the current situation that we're in right now through budget constraints and tough decisions that are going to need to be made throughout the next couple of budget cycles. But also the fact that I've been in this community my entire life. I know some of the great things that we've experienced. I've also seen and been a part of some of the struggles that this community has had to face and this region. So I've got a great sense of what's going on throughout both Dawson, Lumpkin, and even Forsyth County. And being a representative is someone that has that experience, also knows a lot of people, can listen, can learn from them, take their advice, their ideas, their concerns, the issues, and address them head on. I think that the fact that Kevin Tanner has been such a workhorse and has risen in the ranks of leadership at the state level, it leads a void for our community to make sure that we've got somebody that can not necessarily fill those shoes on day one, because that's going to be a pretty arduous task. But I do feel that I can come in and pick up currently where he's taken this community. And I can be the representative that's always going to be accessible. I'm going to be coming home every single night, and you, the voters, and you, the citizens, are going to be the ones to provide what I need to do to effectively serve you as a representative.
Well, and you've shared a little bit about this when speaking about your school board service, but share your experience in public service and building consensus specifically that qualifies you to run for this position.
I appreciate that question. Having had the opportunity to work as a school board member and then as a school board chairman and working with a superintendent in which you have to synthesize information, data that impacts families, children, taxpayers, and the broader community. That gives you a great experience of dealing with 4 to 5 different subsets of stakeholders. And I think it's a great educational path to be able to have experience in making those decisions and gleaning information and gaining insight from all of those stakeholders in order to make sound decisions that are going to benefit the broader community, while also continuing to hold our values, hold my personal conservative principles that I believe we've been able to utilize at the school system, but we've moved our school system extremely forward. I've also had an opportunity to serve at the state level as a Georgia School Board Association president. We were able to help navigate some policy issues during the Great Recession that I think have allowed for many school systems to thrive and come back quickly. And I even had a brief period of time in which I served on the national school board, where we advocated for the state's rights as it relates to federal issues and federal encroachment in education, and being able to unify that message with one voice. And when you're blessed to be chosen by your peers as statewide school board members to be the president of that association, I believe it shows that I have a record of building coalitions and also being the person that is taking the vision of many to be heard. And that experience, I think, will set me apart in this race to be able to do that on day one if elected to serve at the state capitol.
Absolutely. Well, if elected, how will you maintain accessibility for your constituents, in District 9?
Sure, that's a great question as well. So one thing I want to tell you, my phone number, 678-776-5395. That phone number has been my phone number for decades, and I will always answer it. I do not get reimbursed by my financial institution for that phone. I do not get reimbursed by any campaign. It's my personal phone, and I give it out. To me, that's the best way to be accessible. It's even more highlighted now that we're dealing with COVID-19 and can't visit as much and have gatherings and networking events. But I also plan to continue in my banking career. I've got a great organization that I work with, and we're going to come up with a hybrid work schedule for me during session so that I can focus on the role at hand while session is in. but I'll be coming home every night. And I continue to plan to have Saturday events at least every other week across the district during session as well as at the end of session. I want to have a debrief each year after, and I want to have a kind of a pre-brief, preview, if you will, before, and those would be listening sessions, not me talking, but me listening to the community. And lastly, I'm going to partner with the local universities to have an internship program in which, through my campaign funds, I will utilize that to help pay for a political science student major to be a part and be a resource here in the district. And I hope that can be something that can revolve for students 1 to 2 years at a time, hopefully. So that is something that I will institute if elected.
As a former state house intern, I definitely appreciate that. Our community, as you know, is blessed with a strong local sales tax base. The Education Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax, or ESPLOST for short, has generated funds that have allowed our school system to build beautiful buildings like the College and Career Academy, as well as put an iPad in the hands of every student, kindergarten through 12th grade. Currently, state law only allows ESPLOST to be spent on bricks and mortar projects, textbooks, school buses, and technology, but not salaries. Would you support giving ESPLOST flexibility so schools can hire additional staff and faculty?
Well, that is a great question. And Christy, I have been trying and pushing, and with the help of my peer board members at the school board, we have been sending that message through both the Georgia School Board Association, through their advocacy efforts, as well as our board as an individual board, asking our local elected delegation, both state Senate and state House, to consider this. And I think that the current time that we're in with COVID-19, with how we can see how completely a state economy and a local economy can be impacted by a pandemic, this highlights the need for more flexibility with local funds and letting voters make the decision as to where they want to see their local sales tax dollar utilized. I think that we've got an appetite. I'm biased because I'm more versed on this issue than anybody that's running in this race, because our school board was the first school board that championed this legislation as a policy position back over 10 years ago during the last recession. And I think now we're going to be in a position to be able to push that. I can carry that forward. I've already got draft legislation ready, and I will work on day one to make that something that can be a reality, to let our voters have a say-so and be given an opportunity to vote for that option. Some parts of the state, that may not be the best option for them, but in the state and the economy that we're in, I think they'll look at it more closely. And I know that this community would give it a high consideration at the ballot box, and I would definitely be a champion for that legislation. And I'll work with other districts to try to bring them up to speed as to what the pros and cons can be and how we can mitigate that concern from those districts that are receiving QBE funding formula. So getting a little bit in the weeds there, but I appreciate the opportunity, and I'll definitely be a champion for that.
Thank you. Well, as our state continues to grow, particularly north of Atlanta, transportation infrastructure becomes increasingly important. If elected, how do you intend to advocate for increased funding from the Department of Transportation?
Sure. So I think that there's definitely a need for us to have another continued conversation as it relates to transportation funding. Again, this brings back the leadership of Kevin Tanner and his ability. He was chairman of transportation. So I hope that if I'm elected, that I'll have an opportunity to allow him to give me some insight as to what the current stumbling blocks are to get the funding piece where he had envisioned and where the committee was working toward. I think we also need to consider the fact that now gas prices have drastically been reduced to the broader global economy. And so the gas tax piece, while consumption has continued to decline, as well as mileage has continued to get better as far as fuel efficiency, we need to make sure that we're aware of that ever-changing environment, and then looking at the fact that now the price of gas, which is, I think, helping business in a time of need, but it also means there's going to be reduced state revenue. So we've got to figure out if there's ways to be more flexible. And then also, I think there's going to be some serious discussion over a 10-year period of time as to the utilization of technology that we're using right now to educate students, for us to have business to conduct, is it going to reduce the overall burden of traffic over the next decade as people become more versed with technology and not necessarily having to physically drive down Georgia 400 in our area of the state, or Highway 75 or 85, or even the perimeter, but look at the digital highway that we're all going to be focused on as well. So I'm ready to take on that challenge. I'm not going to pretend that I'm as well versed in that issue as I am in banking and insurance and workforce development and economic issues. But I'm a pretty quick study, and I think I've got a pretty good grasp as to the tug and pull that we're going to have to do, and I'm ready to do that as well. And we'll work with the state leaders to get this done and get it improved.
Thank you. For 2020, the Tax Foundation ranked Georgia 32nd in their state business tax climate index. This index is designed to rank how well states structure their tax systems and reflects the following variables: corporate tax, individual income tax, sales tax, unemployment insurance tax, and property tax. Recognizing that there are many ranking systems, are there specific areas within the state government that you feel could be reduced or modified in order to ease unnecessary regulations, restrictions, and financial burdens upon Georgia's businesses?
Sure. So one of the principles that I believe in is in our current economic condition, I think it's been highlighted that taxation that's based on consumption versus taxation that's based on asset values, we have to readdress it for the 21st century. And I think that having a background in finance and accounting, I think it gives me an opportunity to help communicate and help be a part of the future vision as it relates to tax policy in the state of Georgia. I'm a believer that we need to make sure that we have the same tax credits and the same tax reduction for small business owners. I can tell you, having had the opportunity to be on the COVID task force on the Economic Impact Committee, we've actually been able to recommend some policy ideas that I believe that may end up being one of the last things that Kevin Tanner is able to vote on in a called session. Would that occur, or should that occur? And that is to allow every single employer in the state, no matter a size, get a employee tax credit for every person that they hire back coming out of this recession, to get back to the full employment that we in Georgia and this nation was at back on February 15th. And I think that's a really good way to make sure that we incentivize small business and reduce their overall tax burden as they come out of a recession. The next thing I think is we need to reconsider property taxes as it relates to those folks that are in our senior community, as well as the burden that sometimes gets shifted on smaller first-time home buyers and younger families. And I'm a believer that if someone pays property tax on their home for 30 years and they want to stay in that home and that's their primary dwelling, that there needs to be a sunset on how long you're forced to pay taxes on a primary residence. But I also think that we need to consider a more, broad approach as to looking at taxes that it relates to businesses, as well as understanding when you have exemptions, whether it be timber or senior tax exemptions, how is that going to impact that young family or that police officer's family or that teacher's family and those kind of things, and continue to transition from, the last point I'll make is transition from taxing assets to taxing consumption and moving to more sales tax based, and not necessarily burden our homeowners. I think homeowners have been taking too much of the burden, especially in times like this, and I'll lead that effort.
Absolutely. Well, as we've experienced in the last few months, access to broadband is vitally important. From telemedicine to long distance learning and economic development, they all require access to high-speed internet. If elected, what are your ideas for improving access to broadband in your district and throughout the state?
It's another great question. I think we've made some headway as it relates to broadband, and the topography of North Georgia and the comparison as far as our density of housing is we're very, most people don't live within, a tenth of an acre of each other like they do in downtown Atlanta. So we've got more rural spawn, and that's good. That's why people live here. That's why we love this community, but it can cause some issues as it relates to connectivity. But I have a sense of urgency about me. That's kind of how I'm wired. I'm a project-based person in my job. I've got clients that want to get to a resolution. I do a lot of construction lending for both personal residences and commercial buildings. And, you start with just a blank canvas, and then you end up with an end product where someone's going to raise their family, or they're going to end up having their company or their small business and have employees coming in and out and customers. So to me, that's the type of effort that we need to be putting forth, is a start date and an end date to this project, which is broadband. And I think we need to make it a sense of urgency that we need to address this issue in 3 years. We need to figure out who do we need to partner with, whether it's EMCs ramping that up. If we need to partner with school systems and put hotspots on top of school buildings, on top of government facilities, take that mentality of building networks to the next level. And I believe that will help us come a long way. I think we can also partner with some other private property owners as it relates to similarly how cell phone towers came about. I think we can do the same thing for broadband as the technology continues to be improved. And I'll work to make sure that we can incentivize that type of corporate and individual behavior.
Great. Well, as you know, Dawson County is home to the longest operating corn maze in the state, Uncle Shucks, one of the top fall agritourism destinations, Burt's Pumpkin Farm, the tallest cascading waterfall east of the Mississippi, Amicalola Falls, and of course, the North Georgia Premium Outlets. Georgia's 9th House District is home to many other agritourism and tourism destinations. How do you propose to promote and foster the sustainability and growth of tourism throughout the state of Georgia, given that it has such a great impact within Dawson, Lumpkin, and Forsyth counties?
That's another great question. And, being a native of the community, I feel like I'm also extremely blessed to have experienced all of those that you mentioned. My mom actually worked at Amicalola Falls when I was a kid as a naturalist. She would do the shows with small little critters and owls, and also black snakes and things like that. And so I grew up playing in the woods at Amicalola Falls and learning about the natural environment that we love and we want to protect and highlight. I also know the folks at Uncle Shucks, and also know the folks at the Burt's Pumpkin Farm. I'm very blessed to have Johnny and Russell Burt and their family's support in this campaign. I think that for me, I believe a representative's role is to also be a cheerleader and a marketer for this district. And that includes the agritourism that we've got, but also understanding that there's the agriculture community behind that has continued to help those businesses thrive, because it gives an opportunity for that continued, to preserve the agriculture section of this district. And so that's going to continue to be a draw for the tourists. I will tell you, I've got deep concerns right now about how the impact of COVID-19 has on the tourism industry specifically, not just those businesses in that state park that you mentioned, but also all of the small businesses that feed off of and support those industries. That is going to be the hardest hit area from COVID-19. And we're going to have to figure out at the state level, and I think have to work with our local county commissioners and city councils to be able to, say, look, Dawson County and Lumpkin County, they are a safe community to come visit. They're a safe place to stay. They're a safe place to go and take your family to all these wonderful agritourism businesses. And, I think it's going to be a drive on continuing to balance the growth and sustainability of this district. So I'm going to be a champion for all those businesses you mentioned, and even those that you didn't.
Thank you. Well, if elected, what do you envision for your role in advocating for the businesses in your district? And is there one particular business issue that you plan to champion? I know it's hard to pick one.
That's a great question. So I want to say this, because I have 22 years experience in banking, I feel that I've got a great sense as to what the average business owner and employee have to experience. I think that may be why I've gotten the endorsement of the Georgia Chamber of Commerce compared to a lot of great candidates in this race. I just don't think that they've got the business background and experience that I have to be able to, on day one, advocate for the biggest issues that the businesses here in this district are facing. Number one, I think we've got to look at tax law. But if we're being honest, I think this year is not going to be a huge tax burden because so many businesses are not going to show great profits. So they're not going to have a huge tax burden in this operating cycle. So what can we do to help spur employment? What can we do to make sure that we've got a great workforce development pipeline? What can we do to bolster the education community that's going to feed those job creators and those current businesses to want to stay and grow in this district? I also want to be a person that's going to champion a new kind of a theme called Georgia Made. It's not a new concept, but I believe that we in Dawson County and Lumpkin County and Forsyth County are going to have an opportunity to champion products and services that are going to be highlighted as Georgia Made products. And they can be Dawson made or Lumpkin made, and each individual community can kind of come up with their own marketing theme behind that, but they can all be centric to a Georgia Made campaign, just like that we've seen in the agriculture community with Georgia Grown. I think that's what I'm going to do, is bring those ideas to the table and try to help be a part of the vision that's going to continue to benefit the businesses in this community. But I'll continue to make sure that we focus on tax reform. And I'm also extremely excited about tort reform discussion. I know there are attorneys in this race, and I understand that there's a role that they have to play, whether you're a defendant or a plaintiff. But I think tort reform needs to have a fair discussion, and we need to make sure that it's going to benefit the businesses so that they're not put at detriment because of one bad actor and then everybody pays a price. So I'm going to be a person that's going to lead in that effort as well.
Well, to follow up on that, by the federal definition of small business, which is having 500 or fewer employees, all Dawson County businesses are small, and I would venture to guess that all businesses in this district are small. So please share with us why a small business owner should vote for you.
Sure, that's great. Well, you as a small business owner are at the heart of what my entire professional career has been about. I spent 22 years doing my best to make sure that small business owners can meet their daily grind, but also plan for the future and plan for their employees, whether it's one employee or 50, or if you happen to be what I call a large small business with 499 employees. I'm an advocate for you and your effort. I'm going to get a little emotional because I saw my dad transition from being an educator to his own small business entrepreneur. And I can remember the struggles when I was a teenager, watching my dad literally balance the checkbook on the kitchen table and try to figure out, okay, how am I going to make sure that we can get Will and Paul into basketball camp if this person that I did a cabinet job for can't pay me? So I get that. And I'm going to make sure that I'm going to fight for better policy that's going to remove regulation, just like they make great incentive packages for folks to come to Atlanta. I believe we need to have a small business incentive package that's going to be utilized statewide and let the economy do what it does. And that's champion you, the small business owner.
That's great. Well, as we come to a close, please share with us anything you think we might have missed in asking, and also you can share with us your closing statement.
Great. Well, Christy, I think you do a phenomenal job. I want to also highlight the fact of how Georgia Trend recently gave a big pat on the back and a spotlight on what Dawson County is doing. And that's a testament to you and your team, as well as all the business members of the Chamber of Dawson County. You guys, I mean, look, my heart and my head are always every night in Dawson County. I spend a lot of time in Lumpkin at work, and in Forsyth County with clients, and in Dawson County with clients. But you guys are just a phenomenal bright spot in this state, and I'm glad to see our chamber being highlighted. I know the folks at the Georgia Chamber of Commerce are extremely impressed with you and your leadership, and I know your board is as well. As far as a final thought or a final comment, I want to say this: the opponents in this race, they're all good people. I know that their heart is in this race just like mine. I'm not better than them, and they're not worse than me. But I believe that I am the person, I'm the candidate that's going to best serve Dawson County and Lumpkin County, because I live here, I worship here, I work here, I raise my family here. I didn't just move here a few days ago, a few years ago, or a few decades ago. This district is my life, my blood, my sweat, my tears. And I'm going to fight for you just like I'm going to fight for my parents and for my family and the school children in this district, the school children in Lumpkin County, and all across this district. I'm the person that's going to be able to continue the fight in Atlanta, to champion good ideas, to criticize respectfully when there's bad policy that's coming down the pipe. And I'm going to be a person that's going to be a citizen legislator. I don't have a plan to do this for 20 years. I don't know how long God's going to leave this door open, but I want to serve, and I want to serve you, and I'm going to listen to the concerns. And I hope that my personality and my record of service and getting things done for the school system and business clients and families will give you the confidence that you need to know that I'm going to be there for you. You'll always have my heart's always going to be for your best interest, and I'm going to have this community's back. And I hope that you'll vote for me on June 9th. If you want to learn more, you can follow me on Facebook, Will Wade for State House, or my website is www.votewillwade.com. And I'm also on Twitter at Wade State. So please feel free to utilize social media. Reach out to me. Again, my number is 678-776-5395. I pray for my fellow candidates. I hope that they continue to run their race as they have. I'm going to continue to run this race on your behalf. I look forward to being potentially your next state representative, but always know that you can call on me and I'm ready to serve. Appreciate you so much, and thank you to the Dawson County Chamber.
Well, we really appreciate you having this conversation with me. We're hoping eventually we'll get to see all the candidates in person, but thank you for your time today.
Thank you.